Boker Tov. Today's daf yomi is Avodah Zarah Lamed Zayin, Avodah Zarah 37. We're going to start on the bottom of 36b, around 7 lines from the bottom. Today's daf is dedicated for a shmir for the Chayalim, Matzah for the Shvuyim, and a Yeshua for Am Yisrael. In this is Sarah. Mar tells us on Lamed Vav Amud Beis that there was a decree that they made a decree. The Bezdin made a decree that as part of the 18 things that Shammai and Hillel voted, and they made a decree that they said that you can't have their wine or their bread or their oil because of their wine, and the wine because of the daughters of the idolaters, and the daughters of the idolaters because of davar achar, something else, and something else because of something else. What are this something else that they're referring to? Ma'al davar achar mishum davar achar. What are these cryptic things? So Amar Nachman Bar Yitzchak Gazra al Tinok Ole Kochavim. They made a decree about the little baby idolater boys, Sheyitame Beziva, that they transmit Tuma like as though they were a dove, so someone who has something falling from their body. And the reason is because they didn't want the young Jewish boys to be having playing with the young idolaters, because that would lead to promiscuity. The Amar Rabbi Zera Tsar Gadol Hayoli Eitzel Rabbi Asi. Rabbi Zera said, I once had to ask Rabbi Asi. Rabbi Asi Eitzel Rabbi Yochanan. Yochanan Eitzel Rabbi Yana. Rabbi Yana Eitzel Rabbi Nosson Ben Amram. Rabbi Nosson Ben Amram Eitzel Rabbi Tino Kovik Chacham. And I didn't know if there's a baby idolater. At what point do they transmit the tumah? Amrli Ben Yomo, and he said to me when he's 1 day old. Shabbat Eitzel Rabbi Chia, when I came to Rabbi Chia and I asked him, Amrli Ben Tesha Shanam Yom Echad. He said to me when he's 9 years old and 1 day. And when I came and I expressed my opinion before Rabbi, Amrli Hanach Devarai. He said, abandon my words that I said 1 day. Follow the position of Rabbi Chia, who said, at what age is the child who's an idolater tamei, or on top of Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph? Only when he's 9 years old. Since he's capable of at that age of engaging in bia, mitame name kaziva. He also is going to transmit tumah like a zav. And Amar Avina, therefore Avina taught Hilkach hatinokos ovedet kochavim ba'as gimel shana v'yom echad. Therefore, if you have a girl who's an idolater, when she's 3 years old, since she's capable of bia at 3, mitame name beziva. Therefore, we're going to say she transmits tumah like a ziva. This is also from. So the Gemara says, Pshita, this is obvious. Well, he just said if a boy's 9 years old because he's capable of bia, so the girl also, when she's capable of bia, which is 3 years old. The Gemara says, no, Mal the Tema, Hayadel Argue, Vayadel Argue. He might have said at 9 years old, he not only knows how to do bia, but he also knows how to seduce the Jewish boys. But the 3-year-old doesn't know, so we say, no, Kamash 1, at 3 years old, when she's Re'uyah bia, that's when she transmits the Tumah. This idea that she's Re'uyah bia appears also in our Parshas Matos, because it says in the Torah you're supposed to kill all the Midianite girls, and when they were, Rashi says when they're capable of having bia, that's when they were supposed to die. And how did you know when they were capable of having bia? So Rashi says they would put the tzitz they would pass them in front of the tzitz, which was the Kohen Gadol's forehead, and that would tell them their faces would turn yellow if they're capable of having bia. So the Gemara says, "Mistamech v'azal Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya Kasvei Rabbi Simlai." So Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya, Rashi says, was the grandson of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Was leaning on the shoulders of Rabbi Simlai Shemai, his attendant. Amalei Simlai. So Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya says, "Simlai Roa Yisa Emesh b'Beis Midrash." You weren't yesterday in the Beis Midrash. Wow, yesterday, you know what we did? Kishitarnu es Hashemen. We allowed the oil. So Amar, so he said to him, "B'yameinu tatir afas apas." So Rabbi Simlai said, in our days, however, basically, we wish we could also allow the bread of the idolaters. Amar, so no, Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya said, Im kain karulan beis dina shariv. If that's the case, they're going to call us the permitting beit din, which is not a compliment. The Tanan, hey, Rabbi Yossi ben Yoezer ish streda, because we have a Mishnah in Edios. And Rabbi Yossi ben Yoezer or ish streda testified al ayal kamsa. It's a type of locust. Dachan, that it's kosher. Valmashka beis mitbachaya, and the liquids that come out from the karbanos, i.e., the blood and the water, are dachan. They're tahor. They're not tamei. We'll see why in a moment. But the karavumisa misayev, and also somebody who touches the dead body, he is going to be tamei. He said all these things. So the Karaway Yosef Sharia, and so we're going to spend the whole daf basically talking about this statement. And says Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya, they called him Rabbi Yosef. They called him Yosef, the permitting one. So I don't want to also start going around permitting things. So Rabbi Simoy said, "Amrei, Hasam Shari Tlas." Yeah, well, there were three things that they permitted: dead body, the locust, and the mashke, and you only did one. Mar Sharachad, all you did was the oil. Even if you would allow the bread, akati tartin, it would only be two dahavyan, and you would still have one more before you're permitting besin. No, so Rabbi Yehuda responds, Ana sharai achrisa. I actually already permitted something else, and so therefore I'm already at two. I can't go to three. What's the other thing you permitted? The Tanan, we learned in Gittin, the following case, if a man says to a woman, Zegitech, this is your divorce, if I don't arrive from here in the next 12 months, and he dies within the next 12 months, ain't no get. It's not considered a get. So she's a widow, which means she falls to Yibum and not a divorcee. So he says, basically, this is your get if I don't arrive in the next 12 months and he dies. So the Mishnah says that under those circumstances, not a get. But Tani Allah, and it was taught about that, and the rabbis allowed her to remarry. Who are these rabbis? This is Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya. Rabbi Yehuda Mishmol, Beis Dina Deshar Mishla. It's the same ones who allow the oil. That they said, if this is your get, if I don't come within the next 12 months, and he dies, then it's a get. That was Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya, because even though the Mishnah said it's not a get, Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya said it is a get. Why? Several like Rabbi Yossi. He holds like Rabbi Yossi, who said, that since there was a date in the since there was a date written in the get, that proves that he intended for her to be divorced. Rabbi Abba, Brei Derebechia, Bar Abba, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, Horav V'lo Hodulo, Kol Shaso, Amro Kol Siyaso. So, and they say that Rabbi Yehuda, so that Rabbi Yehuda Nasi or Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya, in our case, he ruled this way, and nobody admitted to him. As long as he was going on, nobody admitted this to him. And some say all of his friends did not admit to him. So that's the third case where Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya allowed it. So the Gemara says, hold on 1 second, I just want to check one thing. Okay, so the Gemara says, Amrei Rebbe Elazar Mahu Saba Kisharitua. So Rabbi Elazar said to an old man who was there, Kisharitua Alter Sharitua Lo Asi Udomo Achash Nemasar Chodesh Taikayimwa Tanai. So the Rabbi Elazar said to Saba, when Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya allowed this woman to remarry because she would say she was divorced, did he allow her immediately, or did he say he has to because the husband didn't come? Well, he's obviously not coming because he's dead, or maybe he has to wait 12 months and wait for the condition to be fulfilled. So the Gemara says, why didn't Rabbi Elazar ask this question on the Mishnah? The Tanah, because we learned in the Mishnah and get in the above. You're divorced from now, and if I don't arrive in the next 12 months, and he dies within those 12 months, have a get, and it's a get. Because he fulfilled the Tanai. And the question you should have asked is, have a get, you should have asked about that question was immediately get because he didn't come. Or maybe only after 12 months, when the night is fulfilled. So why are you asking on Rabbi Yehuda Nasi or Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya? Why don't you ask it about the Mishnah in Gittin. So Rebbe Elazar responds, in Achinami, that's true. Al Mishum Dahavis Behu Minyana, no. But because you were amongst those people that were counting with Rabbi Huda and Nasi to allow it. And so therefore, for sure, you would know when how we passed under those circumstances. Everybody admits. So Abai is going to say that if a person says, when the sun rises, you're divorced, it means to say, in the morning, when the sun rises, you're divorced. Get and so therefore, if the husband would die that night, then, and the get would be in the morning, it's a get after the death, and so therefore it's not a valid get. You can't give a get after death. But if he says amanas on the condition on the condition that the sun will rise, that's a conditional get. That means me'achshav kamra. He's saying you're divorced from now on the condition the get rises in the morning. And if he dies in the night, it's for sure a get. It was conditional get. The get mechayim, and she was divorced while he was alive. Rafuna says that whoever says on the condition, it's like you're saying from right now. Where is there a dispute? If the sun will come out, meaning to say, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, Savarlach, Rabbi Yossi, the Amr Zman Shal Shtar Mochiach. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi says under those circumstances that since there is a date on the contract, that proves that he means to do it from now. Means to say from today if I die, means from right now if I die, and it's a valid get. Rabbana Leisu de Rabbi Yossi v'Avoy Kazeh Gitech Imeti. Greater, and the Rabbanan say that they do not agree with Rabbi Yossi, and they say that it's like the case of where if he says to his wife, "This is your get if I will die," and he doesn't say from today. And we learned in the Mishnah there, and if somebody says, "This is your get if I die," then she's not going to be divorced because it's a get after death, and so therefore would not be valid. So now we go back to the statement that Yossi ben Yoezer Ishtreida taught. Kufa, hey, Yossi ben Yoezer Ishtreida. Yossi ben Yoezer Ishtreida testified al ayol kamsa tachan about a locust that it is kosher. This special type of locust called the ayol kamsa. And then these liquids of the carbonos, the blood and the water, tachan, that they're kosher, that they're not tamei, that they're tahor. Somebody touches the dead body is tamei. The karole Yosef Sharia, and they call him Yosef, the permitted one. So the Gemara has the question, my ayol kamsa. What does it mean to have an ayol kamsa? What is this ayol kamsa? Rav Papa Amar Shushiva. Rav Papa says it's a type of locust that has a very long head. And that's what he's saying. Rav Chia bar Ami Mishmedu Amar Suspil. That this is a locust that's called a suspil, and then it does not have a long head. Vikarule. So Rav Papa Amar Shushiva. Rav Papa says it's the Shushiva, which is a locust with a long head. And they're arguing about Yosef and Yoezer Rabbanan are arguing about a locust with a long head, because there's a dispute in Elotrefos about a locust with a long head. There are some who say that that this type of locust is permitted, but others are not. And so that's what we're talking about. So the Gemara says, Marasav Rosha Arach. So Marasav Rosha Arach is mutter. So one says permitted, one says prohibited. Chayav Barashi Amar Mishmei De'ua Amar Suspil, that the ayol kamsa is not the Shiva, but it's a suspil, which has and Barosho Arach Kol Yamo Pligidatu, that everybody would agree that if it has a long head, it's part of the process that's prohibited. Here we're talking about here we're talking about a case where the wings cover the majority of the body, but only barely. Mar Savarubo called that we need we just need the wings to cover the body, just barely. No, in order for the locust to be kosher, the wings have to clearly, visibly be covering the body, not just barely. Okay, the next thing that he testified about, that Yossi ben Yoezer straight testified about, was that the liquids that come out of the karbanos are kosher, the blood and the water. My dachan. What does dachan mean? Rav Amar dachan mamish. What does it mean? Rav says it means it's actually tahor. It's not tamei at all. Shul Amar dachan tamei acherim. No, they are not able to contract, make others tamei, but they themselves become tamei. But they themselves are tamei. Rav Amar dachan mamish. Rav says that these liquids are completely tahor. They're completely ritually pure. Kasavar tumas mashkin derabban. He says the whole concept that a liquid can become ritually impure is only rabbinic law. And when the rabbis made the decree, tuma chigadzer rabbanon tuma b'mashkin da'alma. When the rabbis made the decree, they made the decree about. When the rabbis made the decree, they made the decree about mashkin ba'alma. They made about liquids in general. But about the liquids of the karbanos, lo gazu rabbanon. The rabbis didn't make a decree. Ushmuel amar dachan milotame acherim. Know that they're tahor, that they can't make other things tamei. Aval tumas atzma yesh bahem. But they themselves are tamei. Why? Because savar tumas mashkin deraisa. He says that the tumah of liquids is biblical, atame acherim derabanan, and to make others tamei is rabbanan. Because rabbanan b'mashkin de'alma. And when the rabbis made the decree, they only made when the rabbis made the decree that it's tahor, they made it on. When the rabbis made the decree that you can make other things tamei, that was only in general. But b'mashkin be'emit b'chaya lo gazu. But on the mashkin of the karbanos, they did not make this decree. Val the karev misa misaiv the karev Yosef Shara, and anybody who comes and touches a dead body will become tamei. And they called it Yosef Sharia. They called him Yosef the permitted one. So the Gemara says, what are you talking about? Why is he called Yosef the permitted one? He's prohibiting anyone who touches a dead body. Yosef Asra mi violate. They should call him Yosef the prohibited one. And secondly, what do you mean? He said anybody who touches a dead body is tamei. That's not his law. That's a biblical law. Whoever touches, anyone who touches anything on the face of the field, a dead body, is tamei. So the Gemara explains the araisa the karev tamei, the karev tahor. Biblically speaking, anyone who touches that body is tamei. But anyone who touches somebody who touches a dead body is tahor. But also, and come along this person, the gods are feel the karev the karev, and they said even one who touches a dead body, and they said the technically speaking, one who touches a dead body is tamei according to Torah. And one who touches dead body is tahor. And the rabbis came along and said even one who touches somebody who just touched a dead body will become tamei. But also you came along Rabbi Yossi ben Yoezer ish straight as bezdin and the ukmi adioraisa, and he pushed it back to the biblical law. The karev nami the karev that it is tahor. If you touch somebody, you touch somebody. So the Gemara says, what are you talking about? The karev nami dioraisu. Somebody touches their body. It's also biblically speaking, he's tamei. That anyone who touches the tamei person will become tamei. So Amrura Abanan Kamei Derava Mishmei Demar Zutra Berei Derav Nachman the Amar Mishmei Derav Nachman Deraisa. The distinction is the Araisa, biblically speaking, the karev Bechiburin Tumashiva. So he said that biblically speaking, somebody who touches someone who touches their body while they're touching their body, that's called Bechiburin, that's Tumas Shiva. Then they're tamei for 7 days. But while they're not touching the body, Tumas Erev. They're just tamei till nightfall. But also Inu, and he came along, the Gazer, and he made a decree. Even if they were not touching the dead body at the time, and you touch that person, Tumas Shiva, you're tamei for 7. But also Iu, and he came along, Rabbi Yossi, and Yoezer Sreida, and V'ukma De'araisa. And he put it back to the biblical law that if you touch someone who's touching the dead body, you're not tummy for 7 days. So you're only tummy till the nightfall. And that's what the Gemara says. What's the biblical law? Somebody who touched the dead body is tummy for 7 days. It says whoever touches the tamei will become tamei. One who touches it will tummy till evening. Okay, if the person is touching the dead body, then he's tamei. And you touch him, then you're tamei first. So somebody who's touching their body is tummy for 7 days. But at the end, it's talking about somebody who's not touching the person who's touching the dead body. Just touch him afterwards, and then he's only tummy till evening. So the Gemara says, Amaru Rava said to the Chachamim who were trying to explain Yosef and Yoezer on the based upon what Rav Nachman said, didn't I say to you, Lo tislu be buki sriki Rav Nachman? Don't hang empty vessels on Rav Nachman. Hachiyam Rav Nachman. This is what Rav Nachman taught. Safek Tumah b'Rishus Harabim Yiterain. That when Yosef and Yoezer Ishtreida allowed something, he allowed, if we were unsure if it was Tamei and it was in the public domain, that's what he allowed for them. That's what he allowed for them. Gemara says, what are you talking about? This is not Yosef ben Yoezer. Can we learn this out from the laws of Sota? Just like Sota is a private domain and it's a doubt, and we say it's Tamei. Also, Tumah is a private domain, we said Tamei. Mara says, yeah, but Rabbi Yochanan came. But Rabbi Yochanan said, even though that's the case, that if it's a doubt about Tumah in the public domain, it's tahor. He says this is halacha, but we don't want to tell people this. Halacha ve'imorin came, because we don't want people to be disrespectful about the laws of Tumah. And he decided that people needed to know this halacha, and he taught it. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Koros Noatz Lahem. That Yosef ben Yoezer used to stick pillars of wood, stakes, into the ground. Omer Ad Kan Rishus Haram, up until here is the public domain, where if it's a doubt, it's tahor. Ad Kan Rishus Hayachid, and from that point on is the private domain, where if it's a doubt, it's tamei. Also coming to Rabbi Yanai, Amaro Hamaya B'Shikasa the Benahara Zilo Tavulu. But Rabbi Yanai was not lenient about this. He said, if you came into a case of a doubtful tumah in public domain, go immerse in the mikvah. Rashi says about Korah's nuts, and he made a stake in the ground to make a mark between the private domain and the fields of the valley, which are Rishus HaYachid, and the public domain. That the owner of the field didn't want anybody walking through. And furthermore, we say in Hashutfin that the 4 amos next to public domain are Rishus Harabim Utama. And so that's where he stuck the stakes. Okay, so then it says in the Mishnah, the shlakos, these are the cooked foods of the idolaters, are prohibited. What's the source for this? Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Amar Kra, Ochel b'kesef tashbireni v'chalti. It said in the Torah that Moshe Rabbeinu said to the king of Sichon, let me pass through. I'll buy the food and I'll eat it, and I'll buy the water and I'll drink it. So in order for us to be able to eat the food, it has to be kamayim, like the water. Mamayim shonishtano, just like water wasn't changed. Afochol shonishtano, you can only eat food that was raw, that wasn't changed. If that's the case, if that's the case, wheat that you turn into parched grain should also be prohibited. We say, yeah, it is prohibited. We have a teaching that if there's wheat and you turn them into parched grain, it's permitted. So it must be like water. Just like water that never changed from the form it was created in. So too, the food items have to be, if you want to eat it from the idolaters, have to not change from the form they were created. If that's the case, if it's wheat and it's ground up, it should also be prohibited. If you have wheat that you turned into parched grain, their flour and the kamachim and the salatos their flours are permitted. Or just like water wasn't changed through fire, that it wasn't changed through the fire, but if it was cooked on the fire, it's prohibited. Therefore, the Torah allows the flour and the grains of the idolaters because that was not made through the fire. So we'll stop here, pick this up again, God willing, 12 today and on Shabbos. Today's Shkoyach.